إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم يا أيها الناس اعبدوا ربكم الذي خلقكم والذين من قبلكم يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أيها المؤمنون عباد الله حديثنا معكم بمشيئة الله عز وجل في هذه الجمعة المباركة عن الكلمة الطيبة. Dear brothers in Islam, our khutbah on this blessed day of Friday is on a good word. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran about a good word? What does the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say in the Sunnah about a good word? What are the words of the righteous Muslims about a good word? And what are some examples from the righteous Muslims from our glorious Islamic history regarding the good word? This is our khutbah for this blessed day of Friday. O believer, always speak good. Always be good in your speech. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you an example. He tells you, oh believer, don't you see the example of a good word? This good word is like a good tree. Its roots are firm in the ground and its branches are high in the heavens. It gives food, it gives fruits every time with the permission of its Lord. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala presents for the people examples, perhaps they shall remember. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you that a good word is like a good tree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. O Prophet, say to my servants, they speak that which is best. They always should speak that which is best. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. And say to the people, they should always speak good. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَيْهِ يَسْعَدُ الْكَلِمُ الطَّيِّبُ وَالْعَمَلُ الصَّالِحُ يَرْفَعُ. To him ascends the good word. To him the good words go up, and the actions and the good deeds raise it even higher. Dear brothers in Islam, this is the Quran of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. Always speak good. When you speak to the people, he didn't say the believers. He says to the people, always speak good. The Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says in a hadith that's narrated by Bukhari and Muslim, he says, وَالْكَلِمَةُ الطَّيِّبَةُ صَدَقَةٌ مُتَّفَقٌ عَلَيْهِ. He says a good word is a sadaqah. If you don't have any money or anything to give in terms of sadaqah, always speak just a good word. Say good to the miskin. Say good to the person who's asking you. Inshallah, Allah will bless you. Make dua for them. Al-kalimatu tayyiba sadaqah. Always teach our tongues to always speak good. Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, اتقوا النار ولو بشق تمرة فمن لم يجد فبكلمة الطيبة متفق عليه. He says, protect yourself from the hellfire by giving sadaqah, even if it is just a part of a date. A part of a date, you give it as sadaqah, you protect yourself from the hellfire. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَبِكَلِمَةِ الطَّيِّبَةِ. And whoever does not get this piece of sadaqah of tende, of date, to give as a sadaqah, then they should speak a good word. Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says in the one of the most important hadiths that we should take and be an example of our life, one of the most important hadiths of Islam, that even Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah included it in his Arba'in. Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, listen dear brother, he says, من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Says whoever believes in Allah and the day of judgment, they have only two options with regards to the speech. Option number one, they speak good. Option number two, they keep quiet. Only two options with regards to your speech. قل خيرا أو يصمت. You speak that which is good or you keep quiet. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, there are no sisters, dear brothers in Islam, Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, listen to this hadith, he says, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مِنْ رِضْوَانِ اللَّهِ لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ بِهَا دَرَجَاتٍ. He says that a servant of Allah Azza wa Jal will speak one word, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise him in Jannah darajat, will take him highest levels of Jannah. وَإِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ فِي سَخَطِ اللَّهِ لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا يَهْوِي بِهَا فِي جَهَنَّمْ. Rawahu Bukhari. He says, and the servant of Allah Azza wa Jal will speak one word, one single word, this servant of Allah will speak, and he shall make Allah so angry that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will throw him into the hellfire for generations. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, one word has a great effect. One word creates great and destroys lives. One word has a great effect. Let us look after what our tongue says. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall hold us to account to everything that is spoken by our tongue. On the day of judgment, we shall be asked everything, but our tongue shall not speak on that day. Our hands, our feet, our body parts shall speak on that day. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, this is the sunnah of Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, encouraging us to speak a good word. وَالْكَلِمَةُ الطَّيِّبَةُ صَدَقَةٌ. And a good word is a sadaqah. The righteous Muslims, they say, some of the Salafis, they say, لا تجد شيئا من البر يتبعه بر كله غير لسان فإنك تجد الرجل يصوم النهار ويفطر على الحرام وإنك تجد الرجل يقوم الليل ويشهد الزور بالنهار ولكنك لا تجد الرجل يتكلم بالحق فيخالف ذلك عمله أبدا. The righteous Muslims, they say, there is no part of the body that follows the good deeds except the tongue. You shall find someone, they fast during the day, but at night they have iftar that is haram. And they pray the night prayer, the qiyamul layl. But during the day, they backbite, they do false witness, they do shahadat zur. وَلَكِنَّكَ لَا تَجِدُ الرَّجُلِ يَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْحَقِّ. You shall never find a man, a person, speaking always the truth, speaking always good. فَيُخَالِفُ ذَلِكَ عَمَلُهُ أَبَدًا. And his deeds go in conflict in that. A person who always speaks good, you shall see them in the actions. Brothers and sisters in Islam, this is the Quran, this is the Sunnah, and these are the words of the righteous Muslims. Because of the Corona crisis, the masahif have been removed from the mosques. There's no mushaf in the mosque. The mushaf is the most authentic book. This is the book of Allah. These are the words of Allah. However, in Islamic history, there's a second book that is known as the most authentic book after the book of Allah. What is the most authentic book after the book of Allah Azza wa Jal? It is the Sahih of Imam Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari. Sahih al-Bukhari. This is the most authentic book after the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. It has been given this daraja by the Muslims that is known as the most authentic book after the book of Allah. Listen, how did Imam Bukhari set out to compile this book? That is the greatest book ever written and compiled by a human being. He says, rahimahullah, that one day I was sitting in the gathering of the Imam, the Muhaddith, the scholar SHAYKH ibn Rahawayh. And the Imam SHAYKH ibn Rahawayh said the following words. He said, لو جمعتم كتابا مختصرا في صحيح سنة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, if you compile, all students of knowledge, if you will compile a book with authentic narrations of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He said only these few words. Imam Bukhari was 16 years old. He says, فَوَقَعَ ذَلِكَ فِي قَلْبِي فَأَخَذْتُ فِي الْجَامِعِ الْجَامِعِ الصَّحِيحِ. He says, these words of Imam SHAYKH ibn Rahawayh, they had such a great effect on me that I started compiling Al-Jami' al-Sahih. And it took 16 years, Imam Bukhari, to compile this great book. Every time he puts a hadith in this book, he prays 2 rak'ah to Allah Azza wa Jal. Every time, 2 rak'ah. That book has almost 8,000 hadiths. How many rak'ahs did he pray as he was compiling this book? Every time he prays 2 rak'ah, until he came out with this great book that the full name is Al-Jami' Al-Musnad Al-Sahih Al-Mukhtasar min Umuri Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa sunnani wa ayyamih. Brothers in Islam, look how this one word from the Imam SHAYKH ibn Rahawayh had a great effect, not only Imam Bukhari, but on us as Muslims and our Islamic history. One word brought that great book of Imam Bukhari. Example number 2. One of the greatest scholars of hadith in the 8th century is a man known as Imam al-Dhahabi. Imam Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Uthman ibn Qamiyaz al-Dhahabi rahimahullah. This man is one of the greatest scholars of the 8th century with regards to the knowledge of hadith and Islamic history. He was not a student of knowledge. He was not a scholar. He was selling dhahab, hence his name al-Dhahabi. So one day, as he's selling gold in the shop of his father, one of the scholars, Al-Hafidh al-Barzali, comes. He does some transaction, and the Imam al-Dhahabi writes down something, maybe a receipt or something. Imam Barzali looks at the handwriting, and he says to this young boy, he says to him, إِنَّ خَطَّكَ هَذَا يُشْبِهُ خَطَّ الْمُحَدِّثِينَ. He says, this handwriting of yours looks like the handwriting of the scholars of hadith. Ya salam. He said these few words to this young man. Imam al-Dhahabi says, فَحَبَّبَ اللَّهُ إِلَيَّ عِلْمُ الْحَدِيثِ. Allah made beloved to my heart the knowledge of hadith. And I started seeking the knowledge of hadith until I became one of the greatest scholars in my time. Look at one word, changed the life of this young man, and he became one of the greatest scholars. Example number 3. One of the greatest scholars in Islamic history is a man called Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani rahimahullah. The Imam of the madhab of the Hanabila. The Imam who is forever known as the Imam of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. This man, Ali ibn Madini rahimahullah, one of the scholars, he said, أَيَّدَ اللَّهُ هَذَا الدِّينَ بِرَجُلَيْنِ لَا ثَالِثَ لَهُمَا. He says Allah gave victory to this ummah because of these 2 men. Who are these 2 men? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq يوم الردة وأحمد ibn Hanbal يوم المحنة. He says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave victory to this ummah, this nation of the Muslims, because of these 2 men. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the great Sahabi of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. When the Prophet died, the Arabs, they apostated from Islam. They left Islam. But this man, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, that people used to consider weak, returned them all to the fold of Islam with such bravery and such vigor that Islamic history is amazed with him. And he says the second man who is of such an example is Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. When the people started claiming that the Quran of Allah Azza wa Jal is not the word of Allah but a creation, and he stood firmly against the Khalifa al-Ma'mun, he stood firmly against the Khalifa al-Mu'tasim and his compatriots until the haqq became clear. And all the Muslims from that date on and before and to this date, they say Al-Quran kalamullah ghayra makhluq. The book of Allah is not a creation, it is the word of Allah Azza wa Jal. This Imam Ahmad, he says, anytime he used to perform the salah, he used to make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal. Oh Allah, forgive Imam al-Shafi'i. Oh Allah, forgive Imam al-Shafi'i. Because Imam al-Shafi'i was his shaykh. And he used to make a second dua. Oh Allah, forgive Abu al-Haytham. Allahumma firli Abu al-Haytham. Allahumma arham Abu al-Haytham. His son Abdullah is surprised. Says, Ya Abati, وَمَنْ هَذَا Abu al-Haytham? Oh my father, who is this Abu al-Haytham? Listen, Imam Ahmad, he says, when I was taken to the Khalifa to be beaten up, to be punished, perhaps to be executed, a man behind me pulls my thobe. He tells me, Ta'rifuni, do you know me? قلت لا. He says, I do not know you. Imam Ahmad replies, I do not know you. He says, أنا Abu al-Haytham. I am Abu al-Haytham, one of the most famous thieves in Baghdad. وقد سجل في ديوان أمير المؤمنين أني ضربت 18,000 صوتا بالتفاريق. It has been written in the records of the Khalifa, of the Amir al-Mu'mineen, that I have been whipped 18,000 times. Because of my mistakes, I have been whipped how many times? 18,000 times. Ya Amir, Ya Imam, أنا فعلت ذلك. I did that, O Imam. طاعة للشيطان لأجل الدنيا. I did that in obedience of shaitan because of this dunya. وأنت على الحق تفعل هذا بسبب الدين. And you are doing this because of deen. Imam Ahmad, he says, these words from this thief gave me such strength. فضربت 18 صوتا بدل ما ضرب 18,000 صوتا. I was beaten 18 times, not the 18,000 he was beaten. حتى جاء الخادم فقال عفى عنه يا أمير المؤمنين. Until a servant came, oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, forgive me, forgive Imam Ahmad. He says this thief had a great effect on Imam Ahmad and on us as Muslims, that to this day we say Al-Quran Kalamullah. The Quran is the book of Allah, غير مخلوق. It is not a creation. He says, Imam Ahmad, he continues, he says, I've never heard words that gave me so much firm conviction. كما قال لي عربي في رحبة الطوق. As one of the Bedouins, one of the people of Badia, they say to me, Ya Imam, إن يقتلك الحق مت شهيدا وإن عشت حميدا. O Imam, if you killed upon this haqq that you are upon, you shall die as a shaheed. And if you live, you shall live a good life. Says, فَقَوِّيَ ذَلِكَ قَلْبِي. Says, my heart became firm on that. This Imam passed away in the year 241 of the Hijri calendar, and Muslims to this day, we're in the year 1441, 1,200 years exactly, we still remember the Imam of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Shaybani. We still say, Rahimallahu Imam Ahmad. Look at the great legacy of this Imam. And all became because of a good word they had from unexpected parties. They had from a thief and a Bedouin. Example number 4. There's a city that is known as the city that cannot be conquered. A city that no army can conquer. Armies tried conquering this city for generations, from all religions and all races, but they were not able to conquer this city. This city, one of the French leaders, he says that this city is worthy to become the capital city of the world, of the entire world. Napoleon Bonaparte, he says that this city is the capital city of the world. This is the city of Constantinople. The Muslims, they tried at the time of the Sahaba. Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, he died there. At the time of Sulaiman ibn Abdul Malik, they tried so many times to conquer this city of Constantinople. Then a young man, a young boy, 20 years of age, 18 years of age, 15 years, since he was a young child, his sheikh takes him to the rivers overlooking, to the banks overlooking Constantinople. And he reads to him the following hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. لا تفتحن قسطنطينية فلنعم الأمير أميرها وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشِ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشِ. He reads to him this hadith, this prophetic hadith, that you shall conquer Constantinople. You shall conquer Constantinople. فَلَنِعْمَ الْأَمِيرِ أَمِيرُهَا وَلَنِعْمَ الْجَيْشِ ذَلِكَ الْجَيْشِ. A blessed leader is the leader that conquers Constantinople. And a blessed leader and a blessed army is that army that conquers Constantinople. This young man, he grew up with these words. Every day his sheikh takes him to the bank, tells him, لَا تَفْتَحُنَّ قسطنطينية. Then came the day, one of the greatest days, not only in Islamic history, but in world history. May 30th, the year 1453 of the Christian calendar. Jumad al-Ula, the year 857 of the Hijri calendar. يوم من أيام الله ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون. And that day the believers became glad. For this young man, 22 years of age, by the name of Muhammad al-Fatih, he went and he conquered the city of Constantinople that the Sahabas could not conquer, that the Tabi'in could not conquer. But this man, 857 years later, he comes and conquers the city of Constantinople. And from that date on, to this date on, that city has been known as Islambul. It was later changed and pronounced to Istanbul, the city of the Muslims. And the Muslims, they prayed in the great mosque of Hagia Sophia that was just brought back to the fold of the Muslims like a month ago. Brothers in Islam, look how one word had a great effect on this young man, Muhammad al-Fatih, that he went and he conquered the city of Constantinople. Our final example, dear brothers and sisters, brothers in Islam, there's a country in North Africa. There's a country in North Africa called Tunisia. As Muslims in Kenya, we should be grateful to Allah Azza wa Jal that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a lot of ni'mah that other brothers or sisters of us, they do not get this ni'mah. It is not proper for the Muslims to come and harm us and destroy this ni'mah that we have. Listen to the story of Tunisia. Tunisia was ruled and colonized by the French. And the French, in the entire history, if you read it, are the ones who have harmed the Muslims the most. And they harmed the Muslims the most in the lands of Tunisia. So much so that in Tunisia, if you wear hijab, you go to prison. If you have a beard, you go to prison. In the morning, the intelligence services, they drive around. He's praying Salat al-Fajr. It's recorded. You're called headquarters, you have to come. Why are you praying Salat al-Fajr? This is Tunisia, Arab Muslim country, not Kenya. Arab Muslim country. You're praying Salat al-Fajr. It's recorded. So this man, the leader, the president of Tunisia, Habib Bourguiba, he had succeeded with Salah, with hijab, with Sharia, with Ahkam, everything he succeeded. But there's one thing that was bothering this leader of Tunisia, La'natullah alayh. The scholars have declared him to be an apostate. This man, one day, in the month of Ramadan, in the year 1961, Habib Bourguiba, he stood on national TV and he drank water in the day of Ramadan. He drank water on TV. He ate in TV. And he said to the Muslims of Tunisia, it is not proper for you to continue fasting the month of Ramadan. You should not fast the month of Ramadan. It is affecting the economy of Tunisia. And I've brought the Mufti. To give a fatwa to this regard. The Muslims should not fast. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّ الْعَبْدَ لَا يَتَكَلَّمُ بِالْكَلِمَةِ مِنْ رِضْوَانِ اللَّهِ لَا يُلْقِي لَهَا بَالًا يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ بِهَا دَرَجَاتٍ. So the Mufti, he comes, Tahir ibn Ashur, rahimahullah, and he says, all praise is due to Allah, and praise and blessings to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Oh, you who have believed, fasting has been enjoined upon you, as it was enjoined to the people before you, so that you may gain piety. صَدَقَ اللَّهُ وَكَذَّبَ بُرْغِيبًا. Said, صَدَقَ اللَّهُ. Allah has spoken the truth. And this president of mine, Bourguiba, has spoken a lie. These few words, dear brothers, had a great effect that the Tunisian government in 1961, they went back. They did not ban the month of Ramadan because of these great words of this great scholar, Tahir ibn Ashur, rahimahullah, who has one of the greatest books of tafsir in our century, Tahrir al-Tanwir. The Muslims of Tunisia are still fasting the month of Ramadan to this day. Dear brothers in Islam, if I say to you in the beginning of the khutbah that a good word has a great effect, a good word created great people, will you have believed me? Know, O Muslim, that you become a Muslim with one word. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. You become a Muslim. And you become a kafir with one word. You become married. Someone's private parts becomes halal for you because of one word, qabiltu. Your wife becomes haram for you. She becomes divorced because of one word, talaqtuk. You slaughter an animal, you say Bismillah. It becomes halal for you. You slaughter an animal, you say any other name other than Allah Azza wa Jal, it becomes haram for you. One word has a great effect. Let us look after what our tongues say. لا يحب الله الجهر بالسوء من القول إلا من ظلم وهدوا إلى الطيب من القول وهدوا إلى صراط الحميد. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بما فيه من الآيات والمواعظ والذكر الحكيم. أقول ما سمعتم وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين من كل ذنب فاستغفروه يا طوبى للمستغفرين. الحمد لله على إحسانه وتفضله. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على إمام المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وبعد. أيها المؤمنون عباد الله, we have seen clearly in our khutbah that one good word has a great effect. Dear brothers in Islam, let us look after what our tongues say. One of the things that I advise myself always, and I advise the brothers, never say anything about your fellow brother or your fellow sister that you have not witnessed. People come give you news, put it here and remove it from here. If you have not witnessed anything about your fellow brother, your fellow sister, it does not benefit you to speak it. You are not there. سَتُكْتَبُ شَهَادَتُهُمْ. Their witness shall be written. So be very careful with the news that you go translate, the news that you go give to people. You are not there. You are not present. So keep quiet. It does not benefit you, dear brothers in Islam. Islam has come to protect the honor of people. It is not proper when you start talking badly about our women especially. You say something negative about our sisters. You say so and so is of such a character. Why are you besmirching and harming the status of that woman? Even if she's wearing a bikini, even if she's wearing a miniskirt, as long as she's a Muslim, do not speak things that will harm your akhirah. Do not give your deeds, your good deeds for free. Look after your deeds. Be bakhil with your deeds. That's the advice I give myself on this day. Speak a good word. ألا وصلوا وسلموا على من أمركم ربكم سبحانه وتعالى بالصلاة والسلام عليه حيث يقول في محكم الآيات إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وبارك اللهم على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. وارض اللهم عن الخلفاء الأربعة أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي وعن سائر الصحابة ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين. اللهم انصر من نصر الدين واخذل من خذل عبادك الموحدين. اللهم إنا نسألك الجنة وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل ونعوذ بك من النار وما قرب إليها من قول أو عمل برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وأقم الصلاة.